People like to believe courage is always rewarded. That if you stand up for what's right, the world will somehow balance itself in your favor. But sometimes, courage doesn't bring rewards. Sometimes, it brings consequences. And sometimes, those consequences belong to the most dangerous people alive. The first sound she heard was the cry. It wasn't loud at first, just a small, broken whimper buried beneath the noise of laughter, music, and chatter inside the luxury shopping complex. Most people ignored it. In places like this, people were trained to ignore anything that disrupted comfort. But she heard it. And once she heard it, she couldn't unhear it. A little boy, maybe 6 years old, stood near the glass railing on the second floor. His cheeks were wet with tears, his small hands clutching a worn backpack that looked painfully out of place among designer storefronts and polished marble floors. Standing in front of him was a teenage boy dressed in head-to-toe luxury brands. Expensive sneakers. Gold watch. Arrogance practically dripping off him like cologne. The older boy shoved the child again. "Don't touch me with your dirty hands," he sneered loudly enough for nearby shoppers to hear. "You people always ruin everything." The child stumbled backward, nearly losing his balance. A few people glanced over. No one moved. The teenage boy grabbed the backpack and yanked it away, dumping its contents onto the floor. Notebooks, pencils, a cheap toy car that skidded across the marble. The little boy dropped to his knees immediately, scrambling to pick everything up, crying harder now. "Please, give it back." The older boy laughed. It was a cruel sound. The kind that came from someone who had never been told no in his life. That was the moment she stepped forward. At first, she didn't even realize she was moving. Her body reacted before her mind could catch up, anger surging hot and fast through her chest. "Hey!" Her voice cut through the noise, annoyed. "What?" She walked closer, placing herself between him and the child. Up close, she could see the boy's face clearly. Smug, entitled, irritated at being interrupted. "You heard me," she said, her tone steady but sharp. "Give him his things back." A small crowd was starting to form now. People always loved drama, as long as they weren't involved. The teenage boy looked her up and down slowly, eyes filled with contempt. "And who are you supposed to be? Someone telling you to stop?" He scoffed. "Do you even know who I am?" She didn't. And in that moment, she didn't care. "I don't need to," she replied. "You're bullying a kid. That's enough." A few murmurs rippled through the onlookers. The teenage boy's expression darkened instantly. "You should walk away," he said quietly, stepping closer to her. "Before you regret it." Behind her, the little boy sniffled, clutching his scattered belongings. Then the rich teenager shoved the child again. Harder this time. The boy fell. Something inside her snapped. The sound of the slap echoed across the entire floor. Sharp. Clean. Unmistakable. For a split second, the world froze. The teenager's head jerked to the side, a red handprint blooming across his cheek. Gasps erupted from the crowd. Someone dropped a shopping bag. The little boy stared wide-eyed. And the rich teenager slowly turned back toward her, shock melting into fury. "You," he whispered. Footsteps thundered from both directions as security guards rushed toward them. Voices rose. "What happened? Call management. Do you know who that is?" But she barely heard any of it, her heart pounding, adrenaline still surging through her veins. Across the floor, leaning casually against a glass pillar, another teenage girl watched the scene unfold. She hadn't moved. She hadn't spoken. Unlike everyone else, she wasn't shocked. She was smiling. It wasn't a warm smile. It was calm, measured, interested. 2 men in dark suits stood silently, their eyes scanning the surroundings with professional precision. The girl tilted her head slightly, studying the young woman who had just thrown the slap. Fascination flickered in her gaze. Security finally reached them, grabbing the heroine's arms. "Are you crazy?" one guard shouted. "Do you even know who you just hit?" The rich teenager pointed at her, shaking with rage. My father is going to destroy you, he said, voice trembling with humiliation and fury. You're finished. The crowd buzzed louder. But across the floor, the observing girl's smile widened just a fraction. Because unlike everyone else there, she knew exactly what would happen next. And it wasn't what anyone expected. The security guards were still gripping her arms when the adrenaline finally began to fade. Her palm stung. Not from regret, from impact. The teenage boy in front of her looked like he couldn't decide whether he was more shocked or enraged. His cheek was flushed bright red, the mark of her hand already swelling against his skin. Around them, whispers spread like wildfire. Did she really just? That's Chairman Lee's son. She's dead. Her stomach dropped slightly at those words, but she forced herself to stay upright, refusing to let fear show on her face. Because fear was exactly what people like him fed on, and she refused to give him that satisfaction. Her name was Amara Okoye, second-year university student, international scholarship, part-time cafe worker, and currently in serious trouble. She hadn't planned to be here today. The luxury mall wasn't her world. Even walking through it made her feel hyper-aware of every price tag, every designer logo, every reminder that she existed on a completely different economic planet from the people shopping here. Her sneakers were clean but worn. Her tote bag was practical, not fashionable. She had come because her younger cousin needed running a rare discount. That was it. In and out. No drama. No problems. But life had never really worked that way for her. Amara had grown up in a crowded apartment in Lagos before earning her scholarship abroad. Money had always been tight. Food had sometimes been uncertain. She'd learned early how cruel the world could be to people without power. More importantly, she had learned what it meant to protect someone smaller than you. Her younger brother had been bullied relentlessly when they were kids. Bigger boys. Richer kids. Children who knew adults would believe them over a poor family's word. Amara had fought them more than once. Gotten suspended twice. Her mother used to say she had a hero complex. Amara called it common decency. Either way, she had never been able to stand by when someone weaker was being hurt. Which was exactly why she was now standing in the middle of a luxury mall, surrounded by security guards, facing a furious rich teenager whose shoes alone probably cost more than her monthly rent. The memory of the moment replayed in her mind. The crying child. The backpack dumped on the floor. The shove. The laughter. The way everyone else had pretended not to see. It had ignited something old and familiar inside her chest, the same protective fury she'd felt years ago watching her brother get pushed around. She had tried words first. She always did. Leave him alone. That should have been enough. But entitlement rarely listened to reason. The rich boy had smirked at her, mocked her clothes, mocked her accent, threatened her. And when he shoved the child again, her hand moved before her brain could stop it. The slap had been instinct. Pure, un control d'instinct. And now, reality was catching up. You assaulted him, one security guard barked. He assaulted a kid, Amara shot back immediately. The teenage boy lunged forward, pointing at her face. You're finished, he snapped. No, do you have any idea who I am? And I don't care. Gasps rippled again through the crowd. The boy's fury doubled. My father owns half this district, he shouted. You think you can hit me and walk away? For the first time, a flicker of uncertainty crept into Amara's chest. Not regret. Just awareness. This might actually become a problem. A few meters away, leaning casually against a glass pillar, someone else watched everything unfold with quiet interest. She looked about the same age as the rich boy. But the similarity ended there. Where his presence screamed arrogance, hers radiated control. Elegant black dress. Long dark hair falling perfectly over her shoulders. Sharp eyes that missed nothing. Behind her stood two men in tailored suits, close enough to protect, far enough not to attract attention. Bodyguards. The girl's gaze remained fixed on Amara. On the girl who had just slapped her cousin without hesitation. Without fear. Without knowing who he was. A faint smile touched her lips. Not amused. Impressed. It had been a long time since she'd seen someone act purely on principle instead of self-preservation. Interesting, she thought. Very interesting. Back in the chaos, the rich boy's voice rose louder. "My father will destroy you," he yelled, face twisted with humiliation. "You're dead. Do you hear me? Dead." Security tightened their grip on Amara's arms. The crowd buzzed with anticipation. Consequences were coming. Everyone could feel it. Across the floor, the observing girl tilted her head slightly, eyes gleaming with quiet curiosity. "Interesting," she murmured under her breath. Because, unlike her cousin, she wasn't angry. She was intrigued. And Amara had absolutely no idea that the most dangerous person in the building was now paying faintly of polished wood and expensive cologne, the kind meant to signal authority rather than comfort. She sat rigidly in a leather chair that probably cost more than 3 months of her rent, her hands clenched tightly in her lap to hide the trembling in her fingers. Across from her, the rich boy, the one she had slapped, was shouting loudly into his phone. "I don't care where you are. Get here now. She assaulted me. In public." His cheek was still slightly red. Good, she thought. A security guard stood near the door, arms crossed, watching her as if she were a criminal instead of someone who had just protected a crying child. No one had asked about the younger boy. No one cared that he had been shoved to the ground. The door burst open 20 minutes later. 2 sharply dressed adults entered first, a man in a tailored suit with silver cufflinks and a woman dripping in designer jewelry. Behind them came another man carrying a leather briefcase. Lawyer, she realized immediately. The rich boy ran to them. "Dad. She hit me. She just attacked me." The father's eyes moved slowly toward her, cold and assessing, like he was examining something unpleasant stuck to his shoe. "You," he said flatly. "Stand up." She didn't move. The guard stepped forward. "Miss, please cooperate." She stood, but only because she refused to give them the satisfaction of forcing her. The father walked closer, stopping just a few inches away. He smelled like expensive whiskey and arrogance. "Do you know who my son is?" he asked. Her heart pounded, but she forced her voice steady. "He's someone who was hurting a child." The room went silent. The mother scoffed loudly. "Unbelievable. These people always think they're righteous. These people." The words burned, but she swallowed the anger. The lawyer opened his briefcase calmly. "My client is prepared to press assault charges," he said. "Given the witnesses and security footage, the case is straightforward." Charges? Her mind immediately jumped to tuition payments, rent, her part-time job, her scholarship requirements. If she got a criminal record, everything could collapse. The father spoke again, voice smooth and dangerous. "However," he continued, "we are generous people. If you apologize publicly to my son and cover medical expenses, we may consider letting this go." Medical expenses. For a slap. The boy smirked at her, eyes full of triumph. Something inside her snapped back into place. "No," she said. The word came out quiet, but solid. The mother's expression hardened. "Excuse me. I'm not apologizing," she repeated, louder now. "He was hurting a child. I would do it again." The father's jaw tightened. "You think you're brave?" he asked softly. "You're not brave. You're stupid. People like you should learn your place." Fear surged through her chest. But pride rose stronger. "My place isn't watching someone get hurt," she said. For a moment, the tension in the room felt like a live wire. Then the father turned to the lawyer. "File the charges." Her breath caught. The guard looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight. And then, the office door opened again. Everyone turned. A teenage girl stepped inside. Elegant. Composed. Calm. Her presence changed the air immediately. 2 large men in dark suits lingered behind her, clearly bodyguards, though they stayed near the doorway without speaking. The rich boy's expression shifted instantly. "Cousin," he said, relief flooding his voice. "Did you see what she did to me? Tell them." The girl glanced at his cheek briefly, then at her. Her eyes were sharp, observant, almost curious. "Yes," she said calmly. "I saw." The father frowned slightly. "You don't need to be involved in this." "I'm already involved," she replied. "He is family." Her gaze returned to the heroine. For a moment, neither spoke. Then the girl asked a simple question. "Why did you hit him?" The room waited. She hesitated only a second. "Because he hit someone smaller than him," she said. "And no one stopped him." Silence again. The girl studied her face carefully, as if searching for something beneath the surface. Then, unexpectedly, the corner of her lips lifted. A faint smile. "Understood," she said. She turned to her uncle, the father. "This situation is unnecessary," she continued. "Drop it." The father blinked in surprise. "Excuse me. You're creating noise over nothing," the girl said calmly. "Bad publicity." Cameras were present. "Do you want headlines about your son bullying children?" The lawyer shifted slightly, clearly considering the point. The father's expression darkened. "He was assaulted. And he deserved it," she said bluntly. The room froze. The cousin's face flushed red. "What?" The girl's gaze turned cold toward him. "You embarrass the family constantly," she said. "Be grateful this is all you received." The authority in her tone was undeniable. After a tense pause, the father exhaled sharply. "Fine," he muttered. "We'll handle this internally." The lawyer closed his briefcase. Charges gone. Relief hit her so suddenly she almost staggered. But the girl wasn't finished. She stepped closer. Up close, her eyes were even more unsettling, calm but dangerous, like still water hiding depth. "You're reckless," the girl said quietly. "But not wrong." Then she turned and walked out. Her bodyguards followed instantly. The entire encounter lasted less than 2 minutes, yet somehow shifted everything. But consequences still came. By evening, the mall management called her employer. Violent behavior involving customers. She was terminated. 2 days later, her university summoned her. Incident under review. Her scholarship status uncertain. Rumors spread online. Some supported her. Others mocked her. Stress piled up like crushing weight. That night, she sat alone at a bus stop, staring at her phone calculator. Rent, food, tuition, burned her eyes. Numbers that didn't work. Not from regret, but fear. Still, she didn't regret protecting the child. Not even a little. Headlights suddenly washed over the pavement. A long black luxury car stopped in front of her. Too expensive for this neighborhood. The rear door opened. 2 men in dark suits stepped out. One approached politely. "Miss," he said. Her stomach tightened. "Yes?" "Someone would like to meet you." Her pulse quickened. "Who?" The man gestured toward the car. "You'll see." The tinted window rolled down slightly. Inside, she caught a glimpse of familiar, calm eyes. The elegant girl from earlier. Watching her. Waiting. And somehow smiling. The interior of the car was silent except for the low hum of the engine. She sat stiffly against the leather seat, every instinct telling her she should be nervous, but oddly, she wasn't terrified. Just confused. Across from her, the elegant girl watched calmly, one arm resting against the door, posture relaxed in a way that only came from absolute confidence. Streetlights flickered across her face as the car moved through the city. Neither spoke for several minutes. Finally, the girl broke the silence. "You lost your job," she said matter-of-factly. It wasn't a question. Her shoulders tensed. "How do you know that?" "I make it my business to know things." That answer somehow felt heavier than it sounded. The car turned into a gated driveway. Tall iron gates opened automatically. They entered a property so large it barely felt like it belonged inside the city. Manicured gardens, stone fountains, warm architectural lighting illuminating a modern mansion that screamed wealth without apology. Her breath caught. Why bring me here? The car stopped beneath a covered entrance. A staff member opened her door. Please follow me, he said respectfully. She glanced once at the girl, who stepped out gracefully and walked ahead without looking back, clearly expecting her to follow. Inside, the mansion was even more overwhelming. Artwork that probably cost millions. They entered a private lounge. Soft lighting. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline. A table already set with tea. The girl sat first. Only then did she gesture. Sit. It wasn't rude. It wasn't kind. It was simply authoritative. She sat slowly across from her. For a moment, they just looked at each other. Then the girl spoke. My name is Jia, she said. No last name. Just Jia. And you are? She hesitated briefly before answering. Yuna. Jia nodded once, as if confirming information she already knew. You're wondering why you're here, Jia said. Yes, Yuna admitted. Very much. Jia poured tea calmly, her movements precise. Why did you slap him? The question came again, but this time it felt different. More personal. More deliberate. Yuna held her gaze. Because he deserved it. No hesitation. No epali. Jia's eyes sharpened slightly. You knew he was wealthy, Jia said. I guessed. And you did it anyway. Yes. Why? Yuna frowned slightly, confused by the interrogation. Because someone needed to stop him, she said. Money doesn't make you untouchable. The words hung in the air. Most people, when confronted with power, softened, backtracked, apologized. Yuna didn't. Jia felt something unexpected stir inside her chest. Interest. She leaned back slightly, studying the girl in front of her more carefully. No designer clothes. Calloused fingertips, probably from part-time work. Exhaustion behind her eyes. But also, fire. Courage without calculation. That was rare. Extremely rare. You're either very brave, Jia said quietly, or very foolish. Maybe both, Yuna replied. A faint smile touched Jia's lips again. For the first time, the tension in the room shifted, not hostile anymore, but charged in a different way. A psychological duel. Two completely different worlds measuring each other. You're in financial trouble now. I'll figure it out. I'm sure you will, Jia said. But it will be difficult. Silence. Then Jia placed a small envelope on the table. Yuna frowned. What is that? Compensation, Jia said. For the inconvenience my cousin caused you. Yuna didn't touch it. I don't want money for that. Jia's eyes flickered. Approval. Good, she said. Because that isn't the main reason you're here. Yuna's pulse quickened. Jia leaned forward slightly. I've already spoken with your university, she said calmly. Your scholarship review has been closed. No disciplinary action will be taken. Shock hit instantly. What? And, Jia continued, your previous employer has agreed to withdraw the termination notice. Though I suspect you won't want to return there. Yuna stared at her. How did you? I told you, Jia said softly. I make things happen. The realization landed slowly. This girl wasn't just rich. She was powerful. Very powerful. Why? Yuna asked quietly. Jia considered her for a moment before answering. Because I dislike injustice, she said. It wasn't entirely a lie. But it wasn't the full truth either. The full truth was darker. Jia had grown up surrounded by corruption, greedy relatives, abusive power plays, cruelty disguised as privilege. Her cousin embodied everything she despised. And seeing someone stand up to him, without fear, it felt like discovering something pure in a polluted world. Someone who couldn't be bought easily. Someone who might be useful. Jia spoke again. I also have an offer for you. Yuna's guard immediately went up. What kind of offer? A job, Jia said. Part-time. Flexible hours. Good pay. It won't interfere with your studies. Suspicion flickered across Yuna's face. What kind of job? Personal assistant, Jia replied simply. Help with scheduling, errands, small tasks. Yuna studied her carefully. Why me? Jia didn't hesitate. Because you're honest, easily, she said. That answer felt strangely sincere. Still, accepting help from someone this powerful felt dangerous. But rent, tuition, reality pressed in. I'll think about it, Yuna said cautiously. Jia nodded once. Fair. She stood, signaling the conversation was ending. As Yuna rose to leave, Jia added quietly. You did the right thing that day. Yuna blinked, surprised. Most people wouldn't have, Jia continued. Remember that. Something warm settled in Yuna's chest, validation she hadn't realized she needed. Respect. Mutual. As Yuna was escorted out of the mansion, her emotions swirled. Fear. Relief. Curiosity. And a strange sense that her life had just shifted onto a path she didn't understand yet. Upstairs, Jia stood near the window overlooking the driveway, watching Yuna leave. One of her bodyguards stepped beside her. Miss, he said quietly. Should we proceed? Jia's eyes remained fixed on the departing figure. Yes, she said. A small, calculating smile appeared. Keep her close, she added softly. A pause. She might be useful. The truth about Jia wasn't something people learned all at once. It unfolded in layers. Like stepping deeper into a room and slowly realizing the shadows weren't shadows at all, they were weapons. To the outside world, Jia was simply a wealthy young woman from an influential family. Old money, corporate power, political connections. That was the public narrative. The real one was far more dangerous. Jia was the only daughter of one of the most powerful crime syndicate leaders in East Asia, a man whose organization operated across multiple countries, controlling networks that ranged from shipping logistics to underground financial systems. Enemies called him ruthless. Allies called him untouchable. But among those who truly understood the power structure, everyone agreed on one thing. His daughter was more terrifying. Jia had grown up inside strategy rooms instead of tactics before she studied literature. She learned psychological warfare before algebra. By 19, she had already prevented 2 internal power struggles within the organization. Not through violence, but through calculated manipulation that left her opponents destroying themselves. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Her calm was more intimidating than rage. And when violence was required, she authorized it without hesitation. That reputation had earned her a nickname whispered in certain circles. The Deadliest Heiress. Not because she killed personally, but because when she decided someone was a threat, they didn't survive long. Meanwhile, across the city, her cousin nursed his humiliation like a festering wound. The red mark from the slap had faded days ago. His pride hadn't. She embarrassed me in public, he snapped, pacing inside a private lounge with 2 friends. In front of everyone. One of them shifted nervously. It's not worth escalating. It is to me, he interrupted coldly. His anger wasn't just about pain. It was about power. Someone without status had challenged him. That couldn't go unanswered. Find out where she lives, he ordered. And then, his smile turned ugly. I'm going to teach her what happens when you touch the wrong family. Neither friend argued. Because even if he wasn't the most powerful member of the family, his connections were still dangerous enough. Unaware of the brewing threat, Yuna's life had begun shifting in unexpected ways. She had accepted Jia's job offer cautiously. At first, the work really was simple. Scheduling meetings, organizing documents, running small errands. Nothing illegal. Nothing suspicious. But the environment itself felt different from anything she'd experienced before. Drivers opened doors for GR automatically. Restaurant managers greeted her with visible nervousness. People listened when she spoke, followed her like an invisible aura. Yuna found herself watching closely, trying to understand. One afternoon, after finishing a meeting at a private office building, Yuna finally asked the question that had been growing in her mind. GR, what exactly does your family do? GR glanced at her briefly. A small pause. Then she answered calmly. Many things. Not helpful. Yuna sighed slightly. You're avoiding the question. Am I? Yes. GR considered her for a moment. Most people wouldn't push. Most people accepted vague answers when power was involved. But Yuna wasn't most people. Which was exactly why GR had chosen her. You'll find out eventually, GR said. That answer sent a strange chill down Yuna's spine. The discovery came sooner than expected. It happened accidentally. Yuna had arrived early at GR's residence one morning. A conversation echoed from a partially open office door. Two men inside were speaking in low voices. The syndicate shipments are secured. Yes, but the Osaka group is still testing boundaries. We'll handle them. Miss GR already approved the contingency. Yuna froze. Syndicate? Shipments? Approved? Her pulse quickened. Then she heard the words that changed everything. The boss said the heiress's strategy was perfect. Nolosis. Heiress. Her mind connected the dots instantly. Cold realization spread through her chest. Yaha. The mansion. The influence. The fear people showed. It all snapped into place. Oh my God. She stepped back slowly, heart pounding. Later that day, when she finally faced GR again, her voice was unsteady. You're Mafia. GR didn't deny it. She simply watched her. Yes. No apology. No explanation. Just truth. Shock flooded through Yuna. Images flashed through her mind. The slap. The threats. Her cousin. Your cousin, she whispered. Yes, GR said calmly. Fear finally hit. Real fear. Did I make a terrible mistake? Yuna asked quietly. GR's expression softened. Just slightly. No, she said. You defended someone weaker. That's never a mistake. But he's your family. GR's eyes cooled. Family doesn't excuse cruelty. That answer carried more weight than the words themselves. And strangely, it reassured Yuna. Still, the danger was undeniable now. She was standing inside a world she didn't belong to. A world with real consequences. That same night, across the city, her cousin finalized his plan. 3 men. A quiet street near her apartment. Quick intimidation. Maybe worse. Just scare her, he said. But his tone suggested something darker. Back at the mansion, GR stood near a window, reviewing reports. One of her security heads approached. Miss, he said quietly. We intercepted information. Your cousin hired outsiders. GR's eyes hardened instantly. For what? An attack, he said. Target. Yuna. Silence filled the room. Then GR spoke softly. Prepare the team. Her calm was gone. In its place, something far more dangerous. Across town, completely unaware, Yuna walked home alone under the streetlights. And danger was already waiting. The night air was crisp, carrying the usual hum of the city, but Yuna sensed something off the moment she stepped out of her apartment. Shadows moved unnaturally along the street. A sense of unease curled in her stomach. 3 figures emerged from the darkness, blocking her path. Their stance was deliberate, predatory. Evening, miss, one said with a grin that didn't reach his eyes. Yuna froze. Her heart pounded. The warning she'd brushed off earlier returned with terrifying clarity. Something was about to happen. Step aside, she said firmly, though her voice shook. They didn't move. Instead, one lunged toward her. Panic surged. She stumbled back, tripping over the curb, trying to scramble away. Before she could even register the danger fully, a black luxury SUV screeched to a halt beside her. Doors slammed open. Gia stepped out, serene, energy. Composed. The thugs paused, glancing at her, confusion and fear mingling on their faces. "You shouldn't have come here," Gia said softly, almost conversationally. Her bodyguards flanked her immediately, but Gia moved alone. In a fluid motion, she intercepted the closest thug, twisting his arm behind his back. The second one lunged, and she sidestepped, using his momentum to throw him into the first. Yuna watched, frozen, as Gia moved with calm precision. Every motion calculated. Every action deadly without looking like it was. "Run," Gia said to Yuna. The girl didn't hesitate. She scrambled backward toward the SUV, heart hammering. The thugs tried to regroup, but Gia was already in control. A swift kick sent one sprawling. A single punch to another's jaw left him unconscious before he could even react. Yuna's fear morphed into awe. She had read about powerful people, seen movies, but nothing compared to the presence of this teenage heiress. Calm, unshakable, lethal. The legend was real. Are you okay?" Gia asked, her voice now gentler as she scanned Yuna for injuries. "Yes. I think so," Yuna stammered, still clutching her arms, trembling. Gia's eyes softened slightly, almost imperceptibly. "You shouldn't have been alone. I warned you this might happen. I didn't think Yuna struggled to form words. Gia crouched slightly, bringing herself to eye level. "You did the right thing, Yuna. That's why you're alive." The words struck her deeply. She realized in that instant that this dangerous girl had saved her life. Not because she was afraid, but because she chose to protect her. Yuna's eyes filled slightly, the adrenaline giving way to relief. "Thank you," she whispered. Gia allowed herself a fleeting vulnerability, a small sigh that no one else ever saw. "Anyone who touches what's mine doesn't live long," she said quietly, deadly serious. The intensity of her gaze left Yuna stunned, a mix over her simultaneously. The girl wasn't just protecting her. She was staking a claim, an unspoken bond of loyalty and danger. Yuna felt something shift in herself. Respect, trust, and an understanding that she had entered a world where every action could have lethal consequences. And yet, she felt safer than she ever had before, protected by someone who commanded fear and respect from everyone, and who had just proven it in an instant. They walked back to the SUV together. Yuna couldn't stop glancing at Gia, noticing the faint tension in her shoulders, the slight narrowing of her eyes as she scanned the surroundings. Even the calmness carried an edge of danger that made Yuna's pulse race. As they drove away, sirens wailed in the distance. Gia's eyes flicked to the approaching lights. Police or rival gang, it was unclear. She didn't flinch. She only pressed a button on the dashboard, alerting her team. Yuna felt the magnitude of the situation settle over her. The heiress who had saved her wasn't just a protector. She was a force of nature. And she was now part of Yuna's life. For the first time, Yuna understood fully. Her world had collided with one she could never have imagined, one of danger, loyalty, and unshakable power. The SUV sped through the city, headlights cutting through the darkness, as Yuna gripped the seat. Every nerve in her body was alive. "Don't ever put yourself in danger like that again," Gia said softly, her voice carrying authority without raising volume. I won't," Yuna replied quickly, nodding.
Yaha's gaze softened briefly.
"Good. You'll need to trust me completely if you're going to survive here." Yuna swallowed hard, realizing the weight of the promise, the depth of the bond forming between them, a mix of respect, fear, and emerging friendship. As the city passed by outside, one thought kept echoing in Yuna's mind. This girl, the deadliest heiress, had just saved her life.
Everything.
And in doing so, far ahead in the shadows, another set of headlights appeared, signaling the next escalation. Police, or perhaps the cousin's men, closing in. The night was far from over. And Jia's calm, dangerous presence made it clear. Whatever came next, Yuna was no longer alone. The morning sun spilled through the high windows of Jia's mansion, casting long shadows across the polished floors. Yuna sat in a soft armchair, the events of the previous night replaying endlessly in her mind. Her pulse was still elevated, but the immediate terror had faded, replaced by a strange sense of relief, and a growing awareness that her life had changed forever. Across the room, Jia moved with her usual grace, reviewing reports on her tablet. But now there was a faint edge of satisfaction in her expression, a subtle acknowledgement that the chaos of last night had played out exactly as she anticipated. Meanwhile, news had begun circulating in certain circles. The rich brat, the one Yuna had slapped, was facing public humiliation the likes of which he had never experienced. His father, furious over the embarrassment inflicted on the family name, had taken measures that backfired spectacularly. Financial missteps, media leaks, and scandalous rumors turned him into a figure of ridicule rather than fear. The cousin himself had been sidelined within the family hierarchy, stripped of privileges, and warned that any further recklessness would have far more severe consequences. For viewers, this was the moment of justice. The arrogant, cruel privileged boy had been publicly humbled, all because someone dared to stand up to him. Yuna, meanwhile, felt the tangible rewards of her courage. Jia had personally arranged for her job stability and restored her scholarship. She had access to resources she had only dreamed of, a safe living space, financial security, and the protection of a network that could neutralize threats before they even reached her. She was entering a dangerous world, a world where power was measured not by kindness, but by influence, intimidation, and sometimes violence. Every decision carried weight, and every action could have unforeseen consequences. Yuna felt the pull of this new reality, thrilling yet terrifying, but she also understood she had made the right choice when she defended the innocent child. The bond between Yuna and Jia had solidified. What began as a strange, uneasy alliance had evolved into a relationship built on mutual respect and trust. Yuna recognized Jia's intelligence, her tactical genius, and her unwavering calm in the face of danger. Jia, in turn, valued Yuna's moral clarity, her courage, and her refusal to be intimidated, even by the powerful. Allies, friends, perhaps even a form of found family, their connection was now unshakable. Over the following weeks, Yuna adjusted to her new life. She learned the rhythms of Jia's world, the careful balancing of public appearances with private strategy, the silent calculations that guided every decision, and the subtle displays of power that ensured loyalty and respect. She felt herself growing stronger, more confident, and more capable, not just because of the resources around her, but because of the guidance of the heiress who had saved her. Even with this newfound stability, Jia never let complacency settle in. One evening, while Yuna reviewed documents at the mansion, Jia's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, and a slow, cold smile spread across her face. "A rival syndicate has taken an interest in you," she said casually, as if mentioning the weather. Yuna's stomach dropped. "Me?" Jia nodded, still calm, still calculating. "Yes. They see potential leverage in someone connected to me. It's flattering, in a sense." Yuna's mind raced. She understood immediately that this was a warning, and a promise. As long as danger would continue in Jia's orbit. But she also felt the thrill of knowing she wasn't alone. She had the deadliest heiress on her side. "Good," Jia said softly, eyes glinting with icy amusement. "I was getting bored." It was the final closure of one chapter, but the opening of another. Yuna's life had begun with a single slap, a small act of courage that set into motion a chain of events she could never have anticipated. And now, in the aftermath, she could see the full weight of her decision. A collision with power, danger, and loyalty that had forever altered the course of her life. Her reflection on the events revealed the precise emotional arcs the night had forced her to navigate, from sympathy and outrage at witnessing injustice, to shock and fear when confronting the consequences, to awe and relief during the rescue, and finally to satisfaction in seeing justice served. The experience had also prepared her for the ongoing anticipation of future challenges, the subtle thrill and tension of living on the edge of a world governed by rules far harsher than any university or workplace could enforce. As she looked toward Jia, Yuna understood something fundamental. This dangerous, cold, strategic girl had saved her not just physically, but had offered her entry into a world where courage, morality, and intelligence could coexist, if one was willing to navigate the shadows wisely. And while the night of threats and violence was behind them, the story was far from over. Rival factions, jealous cousins, and envious competitors would inevitably rise. But with Giara's guidance and protection, Yuna was ready to face it all. The city outside continued its noisy, chaotic rhythm. Inside, the two girls shared a quiet moment of understanding, trust, and a promise of loyalty that could withstand any threat. The heiress had proven her lethal power. The heroine had proven her courage and moral compass. Together, they formed an uncommanded respect from the world around them. One slap, one act of bravery, had changed everything. And as Giara's cold smile lingered in the dim light, Yuna realized, this was only the beginning. The future would be dangerous, thrilling, and unpredictable, and she would face it with the deadliest heiress by